All right, Derbyites, the Golden Globe nominations have come out, and we are ready to talk all about the snubs and the great surprises that we saw in them in the film side. I'm Charlie Bright, Gold Derby contributor, and I'm joined by Zach Laws, Kevin Jacobsen, and Sam Eckmann. Zach, why don't we start with you? What jumped out at you the most when you saw the nominations this morning?
Well, obviously, the movie that got the biggest boost of all of them was Vice. I've seen the movie. I'm still under embargo, I believe, until another few days. But I think that, as evidenced by these nominations, I can just tell you that it's a movie that inspires passionate feelings, either way you feel about it. And obviously, the HFPA felt positively. I don't know if that translates into Oscars or if this is just going to be like this year's version of The Post. Another timely movie that they shower nominations upon and doesn't translate, but that remains to be seen. The movie I think that got the biggest boost of life support that really needed it was Black Klansman. When it got those early snubs in the first half for screenplay and score, I was really worried about it, but then it came roaring back with nominations for Spike Lee and Adam Driver and John David Washington, who must be like the happiest son on earth. So, I mean, those are the immediate things that jumped out at me. Everything else pretty much performed the way that I thought it would. There were little snubs like Sam Elliott, Yorgos Lanthimos, Barry Jenkins, Cold War, things that I thought Ethan Hawke in First Reformed is probably the most egregious one. But I'm not worried about that movie's chances overall because I don't think it's much of a Golden Globes thing. If it doesn't show up at Critics' Choice and Guilds, then I'll be worried.
Kevin, what say you?
Oh boy. Well, definitely Vice overperformance, and I think it is very much a possible threat for Best Comedy. I would say that The Favorite, the fact that it didn't get into director is a little bit of a weird scenario it's in now, because I had just kind of assumed by default that it was going to win that category. But then we have something like Green Book, which is another movie like Vice that inspires a lot of, I guess, passionate debate online, good and bad. And that clearly, to me, overperformed by the fact that it got both screenplay and director, which is the biggest get that that film could have gotten. So the comedy race is kind of what I'm most interested in at this point. On the other side, definitely a huge get for Black Panther. I'm sure they're very happy about that. That's a huge breakthrough. And also just, broadly speaking, the fact that we have three, Black-centric films in that race is, I would say, definitely an improvement from where the Golden Globes have been in the past. So there's that. Disappointed with the lack of female-directed films represented here. Happy to see Melissa McCarthy and Richard E. Grant there, but wish that, could have gotten into picture maybe to represent this great year in film for women. But so yeah, those are all my thoughts.
And Sam, what do you think about everything this came out this morning?
What stood out to me is this Best Actress race has been insane this year, and there's like 16 great candidates for Best Actress. And just when we thought it was really firming up, the Globes kind of elevated Pike at the last minute, and Nicole Kidman and Destroyed when Melissa McCarthy had been sort of falling off in certain precursor nominations. And, so it's a lot for me. I still don't. I think they'll probably, be happy to give Lady Gaga an award there, but I think those final 2 or 3 slots are still very much up in the air, and we sort of didn't get any confirmation. It's still a wild card race after all these nominations.
Yeah, so I'm on board with a lot of you, Zach. I'm definitely on board with you about Black Klansman. That it hasn't really fallen off the radar.
Everyone froze for me.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay, that's all right. It seems like I wasn't too worried about it, but I was still felt like, when it didn't get anything at New York or National Board of Review, I was getting a little concerned. And so to have a AFI list and to make get 4 nominations here, that's pretty good. That's really good. I think the Best Actor race is also pretty interesting because we got some interesting contenders in the drama race for Best Actor with John W. Washington and Lucas Hedges got in for Boy Erased. There was some concern that there might be some vote splitting with his performance for Ben Is Back. But I do want to get back to Best Actress because that's like the real interesting one. And on both drama and comedy, I want to start with comedy because I think for a long time, I think the conventional wisdom was when we heard Olivia Colman was going lead for The Favourite, that she would probably be an easy win in that category. But here comes Emily Blunt. And that film is doing really well. It's doing really well in the advanced buzz. What do you guys? What do you think about the Best Actress in a Comedy race?
Well, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I've had Emily Blunt out front since we opened the Prediction Center for the Golden Globe. I think the Globes have always back to Emily Blunt. She's been her nomination, but they have her, and they've been a huge part of elevating her career. And I think they're absolutely going to take that. I mean, they got Lin-Manuel Miranda in there. I think it is even a threat for for comedy musical picture to overtake The Favourite there, maybe. But Emily Blunt is the one thing I feel really confident about. It just seems there's nostalgia to it. It's emotional. She sings. It kind of ticks all the boxes for a Globe voter, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen Mary Poppins Returns. Similarly, I think I'm under embargo still, but again, evidenced by the Golden Globe nominations, they loved the movie. I actually thought it was going to perform a little better in terms of nominations. I mean, it got 4, but I was thinking, obviously, song was something that it should have contended in. I even thought there might have been a possibility for Rob Marshall, but I think that it got enough to assert itself as a formidable challenger in the race. And I think that certainly Emily Blunt, as you say, Sam, I mean, she ticks off a lot of those boxes. She's a Globe favorite. She's charming. And, she sings and dances. And also, she's in another movie this year, A Quiet Place, which, shows a lot of her, shows her range. So I have Emily Blunt winning as well. I think that, it also helps that as somebody on the ground here in LA, Emily Blunt's been going to all these parties. She's, coming over to everybody's house for lunch. And Olivia Colman has been off shooting The Crown, so she hasn't been available to campaign as much. I think that certainly helps her case here.
Yeah, I would definitely co-sign all of that. Emily Blunt is the shining, star that they love to reward in this category, especially. But I would definitely still say Olivia Colman has a shot. I don't think it's totally a done race here because she does have a little bit more of the gravitas. She's coming in as a bit of a front runner, in the echelon of her, Glenn Close, Lady Gaga. Everyone has talked about the 3 of them being the front runners and Best Actress, so there's always that possibility. But again, the fact that The Favourite didn't get into director did kind of concern me a little bit as far as how they truly feel about The Favourite. So yeah, it's a great category though, and I just have to give credit to them for nominating Elsie Fisher and Charlize Theron and Constance Wu. It's probably my favorite lineup of this entire Golden Globes this morning. So kudos to them for that, at least. I would have loved to see Kathryn Hahn too, but I'll take this for sure.
So also what we have, some of the other surprises, at least within the Best Picture categories, is we have nominations for both Black Panther and Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm interested to hear your guys' takes on that. I know that's been actually, I think from what I've seen on Twitter, I think the thing that's actually generated the most heated conversations, if you can call them conversations on Twitter, is the Bohemian Rhapsody nomination for Best Picture. I want to throw it over to you guys. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I had heard that they really loved that movie, and so I predicted that to happen. And so it didn't surprise me. I'm just more relieved that they, didn't go for like Bryan Singer and Best Director. They had a little bit more control than that. I figured Rami was going to get in either way. I guess you have to take it seriously as a Best Picture contender just because of how much money it made. But I don't. I think that's going to be one of those that's just a Globe nominee. I don't see many people marking that as their number one. As far as Black Panther goes, I feel like I think that there was a bit of wanting to put it in there to stay relevant. You know what I mean? Because it only got in for score and song aside from that. They didn't go Michael B. Jordan. They didn't go Ryan Coogler, which were other strong possibilities. So I feel like that was sort of a concerted effort on their part to, bring viewership, to be quite frank. Not to say that it didn't deserve that nomination, but I don't think that I wouldn't be marking it down to win anytime soon.
Yeah, I was surprised that Black Panther did a little bit worse than I thought it would do. I thought the Globes would embrace it even more than they did. I expected we'd see either Coogler or Michael B. Jordan show up there. But I mean, it again ticks off a lot of boxes. They like rewarding films that are incredibly popular a lot of the time. But I think it's not really in the conversation to actually win the category if they didn't fully embrace it.
I totally agree. I think the nominations are the rewards for the two of these films, especially Bohemian Rhapsody, although I do see Rami Malek as a potential spoiler to Bradley Cooper if they want to be like, we really love Rami Malek in this role. We nominated the film for picture. We want to throw it to that, and then give Bradley Cooper Best Director. So he's taken care of. So there's that possibility there. But we'll see. I don't know.
Well, I tell you, that would probably be the worst thing for his Oscar campaign, because as soon as he becomes a threat to actually win, every single negative think piece about that movie's director and its portrayal of Rami Malek and its portrayal of, his sexuality, Freddie Mercury's sexuality, it's just going to just blow up all over the place. I think the same thing is true, just switching gears a little bit with, Green Book overperformed and is a legitimate threat, I think, to win Best Picture here at the Globes. Already we've seen a backlash to it in terms of its content and its portrayal of race relations. I think that's only going to intensify if it picks up victories on the night.
Yeah, I would say that it's a good thing for Three Billboards. It was a good thing for Three Billboards last year that controversy sort of happened in the wake of it being rewarded at the Globes and SAG and everything else. But I feel like it's already been talked about at this point, and it is continuing to bubble, like especially on Twitter, but there's a lot of think pieces about Green Book at the moment. So I would say that is a bit of an issue, more so than what Three Billboards was facing last year. So I'd just watch out for that.
I think and one other thing I want to bring up here is the supporting actor category. Very big omission for Sam Elliott here. Because obviously the HFPA did respond. They liked A Star Is Born, obviously. They gave it 5 nominations, right? And so, I mean, what gives?
Well, I guess,
do they just not like mustaches? I don't know.
I think the Timothy...
Or iconic mustaches, I should say.
the Timothy love continues, I suppose.
Well, that was one that I think he needed a boost there, because it felt like he was getting it, like his momentum was dropping immensely.
Yeah. I don't know if that's going to translate at the Oscars. I feel like Timothy sort of has this, again, I think that, and this is nothing against him personally, I think that they just wanted him at their show. You know, I mean, that movie sort of on Bohemian Rhapsody level of critical derision, you know, and it also hasn't really made a dent at the box office. Yeah, I will say this about Sam Elliott. I think that he still has a chance of winning the Oscar, a la Alan Arkin, who was not nominated for a Globe for Little Miss Sunshine. I think that he's probably on track to get a SAG nomination and Critics' Choice, and I think that'll probably help him along.
Yeah, I think Sam Elliott will be helped out by SAG. I definitely see him getting in there, so I don't think it's the end of the road for him. And I would point out, a lot of the main contenders, everyone has like a missing piece. Mm-hmm. So A Star Is Born missed Sam Elliott. Beale Street got into Best Screenplay but not Director. Black Klansman got Director but not Screenplay. Mary Poppins is missing the song. So a lot of these contenders missed a major nomination. So it in a way puts them at equal footing almost.
I would say that the only ones that seem to have gotten everything they needed, and they're both in the same category, was Vice and Green Book.
Green Book.
You know, so it's too bad they're not competing in different categories. But yeah, you're right. I mean, everything, you can find a missing piece. And I think obviously like the one, if it had been eligible for Best Picture, it would have been in there, was Roma. Mm-hmm. For some fakakta reason, the Hollywood Foreign Press doesn't make foreign language films eligible for Best Picture. But, you know, clearly they liked it enough to nominate him for director and screenplay. So
yeah, I was surprised by the screenplay nod.
Yeah. I mean, it's, especially considering I don't know how many of you have seen the movie, but there's not a lot of dialogue in it. Mm-hmm. And so
yeah. Yeah. How long have we been going?
Oh, I don't know. How much more? What if we got so much to talk about?
I do worry. Speaking of Roma, I do worry that it could be the end of the line for Gializia Aparicio and the actors in that movie, because even though the Globes love to reward famous stars, they also love getting diversity and getting international actors. And so the fact that there were, you know, a Best Actress candidate and a Supporting Actress candidate who they could have put in for that movie about the Mexican experience, I have a hard time seeing another major group doing that and putting some wind in their sails. So I'm skeptical of the people who say that that film had a lot of chance for acting nominations. I think that will be an uphill climb from here.
Well, just a reminder, the Los Angeles Film Critics vote on Sunday, I believe, and they have a tendency to always see the Best Actress category always seems to go to a foreign language performance.
Yeah.
Or more often than not, I should say. And so she would seem right up that alley.
Yeah, I think that, you know, that her or Joanna Kulig from Cold War, which is another movie that got completely skunked today. Yeah, that would have been a front runner in that category.
I don't know if that would have been a front runner because I don't think they really respond to his movies, because they didn't even reward Ida. They nominated it, but they didn't reward Ida when that came around.
You're right. Yeah, I mean, I just meant in terms of, you know, there was buzz around that movie. I mean, they're campaigning that pretty hard. Amazon is in a lot of categories outside of foreign language film, like Kulig and cinematography and even picture. So I was trying to look. There were a bunch of like little snubs that I saw throughout the day, and now my old tired brain is failing me.
All right. Well, let me just ask you guys. We do need to wrap up here, but let me just ask you guys one last question. So I want to talk about the Best Director category. So we have the nominees here. We got Bradley Cooper for A Star Is Born, Alfonso Cuaron for Roma, Peter Farrelly for Green Book, probably the biggest surprise in that category, Spike Lee for Black Klansman, Adam McKay for Vice. Who do you guys at this moment, you know, just a couple hours after the nominations were announced, Who do you think is ahead in that race?
Well, I would say Alfonso Cuaron, just because I feel like they are going to respect Roma, and he has been considered a bit of a front runner and director. I assume they're going to go for Bradley in Best Actor, so there's that. But I also think there's a possibility for Spike Lee, because he is definitely a celebrity among these directors, you could say, and they've never rewarded him in director. This is his second nomination, so it's up in the air.
Yeah.
I'm actually picking Spike Lee for now because I know that Roma's going to be respected. I also have a feeling they're going to give it foreign language film, which means that they'll have an award to give to Cuaron. So if you're thinking in terms of wanting to spread the wealth a bit, I think that director would be an opportunity for them to do that. Plus, I mean, it might be hard for them to pass up obviously Denzel is going to be there with his son, who's a nominee. So, I mean, just how perfect is that going to be to have that moment, with like this basically this filmmaking family all there together. I think that there's, we should probably look out for Adam McKay in director, because he did get in there. Although it's possible that he could be rewarded in screenplay. But I think that it's probably going to be Bradley Cooper, but I'm just going to say it's between Spike Lee and Alfonso Cuarón.
Well, and the narrative of A Star Is Born has really been Gaga emerging as a legitimate film actress and Bradley Cooper emerging as a legitimate director. So they could fulfill that narrative. But I agree, I'm very worried about Spike Lee winning that, and I could switch to him because they have often wanted to spread the wealth and take care of all the major films, and that would be a place to not only reward him, but also claim that they got there first. They got there before the Academy. They gave him an award before the Oscars ever could, and we know they love being first.
And I mean, it should not be undersold, the fact that there has never been a Black winner for Best Director at the Oscars or at the Golden Globes, for that matter.
I think there's only been 3 Globe nominees ever who are Black in the director category, and they were not in the same year. So now we have 3 in 1 year, which is really incredible.
Yeah. So I think that narrative, if it takes hold, especially when you consider the number of films, like If Beale Street Could Talk, like Black Panther, all these films that are in the race, that have a strong Black filmmaker behind them, it might be hard to pass up that opportunity to make that kind of history.
Well, just one other point I would make. I'm torn between Cuarón and Lee, but one thing for Cuarón is that sometimes they do like to pair director and foreign language film. They did that in 2000 when Ang Lee won for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and in 2007 when Julian Schnabel, an American director, won both the foreign language film prize and the directing prize for Diving Bell and the Butterfly. But we'll just have to wait and see. So stay tuned. Go to our prediction center.
Wait, Charlie, one more thing before you go.
Oh, yes.
I remember what it was. So I think that the movie that's just hanging on by a thread right now is First Man. I know Kevin mentioned this before, but I think that Claire Foy getting in is a sign of life for that. I think that there's a possibility that could be like Darkest Hour. So I would not write that out completely just yet.
And it's up to you, readers, to go to our prediction center and make your predictions and keep on posting in the forums. And we will see you very soon to talk about all the television categories. Take care.